And we are live. Welcome, everyone, to our book study group for Monday, the 8th of August, 2022. John Lavenia here with you after a day in the sun. Lindsay, I was just showing my my tan line from my watch. It's pretty extreme. So you missed it. So get here on time. Anyway, good to see you, Llewellyn. There's Lindsay. There's Daisy. Should have some more people tuning in. Hopefully Bob will be here. Bob recommended this book, Bob Meyer. And let's see here. We are covering chapters 14 through 18 today. So hopefully you've read them. We're still in part 4 of the book. Let me just go ahead and pull this up so we all know what we're talking about. Yeah. Screen share, Kindle, do it. Okay, good. So we're right here in part 4, 7 ways to cultivate a mental attitude that will bring you peace and happiness. I'll take it. Thank you. Right. So so I got through the rest of this. We covered chapters 12, 13, and 14 last week. So chapter 15, would you take $1 million for what you have? Great question. Find yourself and be yourself. Remember, there is no one else on earth like you. We kind of covered this on general session today. For those of you who are members here, you know what we talked about today. That was kind of cool, I think. Chapter 17, if you have 11, make lemonade. In chapter 18, how to cure melancholy in 14 days. So we're on to chapter 15. Would you take $1 million for what you have? Now, as is tradition, I'm going to open it up to see if anybody, I know we've got an intimate crowd here today, but anybody have a reaction to this chapter that you want to come on out and talk about before I show you my notes on this chapter? I don't see any hands up or any hot mics. I'm going to go ahead and reshare my screen. And we're going to get right into this. This one, you know, I've said from time to time that if somebody said, would you like $1 million or your abilities? This is the thing that I've considered several times in my life and that I've vocalized. It's like, well, I would certainly take my abilities because I can go and make more millions of dollars, right, with my abilities. And it says here, would you take $1 million for what you have? The answer is no. And I would venture that any of us who are looking with some conscious awareness at, you know, all the blessings that we have, all of our abilities and our assets, right? No, you want to trade that for a mere $1 million, especially at the rate of inflation. So he was talking here about, right towards the opening of the book, the guy who was, you know, going down the street feeling sorry for himself or whatever, and then he met the guy with no legs, right? I felt ashamed of my self-pity. I think that's, you know, typically when we talk about shame, that's not a good emotion, but the way it was worded here, I can get that. It's like, you know what, who the hell are you to be bitching and griping about like whatever? Like there's other people with real problems, man. So like get on with it. And so I think in that light, this is probably a good use of the word shame right here. But as he goes on here, the biggest lesson I learned from that experience, he said, was that if you have all the fresh water you want to drink and all the food you want to eat, you ought never to complain about anything. He's talking about a guy who was basically, you know, almost dead, hopelessly lost in the Pacific. This actually came out of my mouth today, you know, because having read this, it's I think a good reminder that, you know, our problems, our first world problems are, you know, pretty mild, comparatively speaking, right? Sure, there's still, you know, problems that we need to go ahead and solve. But yeah, can we not show a little bit of you know, gratitude and not take for granted these things which are so, you know, often taken for granted. I see it, Lindsay, you're putting Anne Frank in the chat there. Yeah, so there's a person who chose to be happy despite some pretty dire circumstances. It says here, about 90% of the things in our lives are right, and about 10% are wrong. If we want to be happy, all we have to do is concentrate on the 90% that are right and ignore the 10% that are wrong. And yet, so often we allow ourselves to fixate our attention or allow it to be fixated on those little 10%, if it's even that, right? The ankle biting things, And again, not to discount that sometimes, yeah, you've got a significant thing you need to deal with. But the majority of the time, people are just focused on the wrong thing. It says here, add up your assets and you will find that you won't sell what you have for all the gold ever amassed by the Rockefellers, the Fords, and the Morgans combined. Right. Everybody, I'm sure, remembers a guy named Steve Jobs, right? Most successful company in the world, Apple computer, right? And he's dead. He's dead. All the money in the world couldn't save him, right? He had, I don't know what kind of cancer it was, but he's out, right? So no trade here. Yes, the tendency to seldom think of what we have, but always of what we lack is the greatest tragedy on earth. It has probably caused more misery than all the wars and diseases in history. So he's making a statement here. He's imploring us to please, wake up and look at, all that's right. Of course, in what's within the title of the book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, he's talking about living here. Okay, so if you don't stop your growling and grumbling, you will lose not only your business, but also your health, your home, and your friends. This was a conversation. He has lots of anecdotes. For those of you reading the book for yourselves, he talks about, this guy and that girl, and he gives all these case studies. And in this case, the guy was just growing bitter, as the old saying goes, you either grow bitter or better. This guy was growing bitter. And he was told by a guy who was, in worse shape than him, that you're going to lose it all. So anyway, he changed his tune, and it didn't take a long time. Those remarks stopped me dead in my tracks. So we can make a decision in present time about who we're going to be now, and then moving forward. Transformation does not have to take a long time. Usually it requires a bit of, either an emergency, level of necessity, or some emotional impact, something that throws us off of our position, where we defend our rightness and how friggin' right I am and how wrong everything else is. And we just got to shut that down. And usually that takes something of impact, which apparently the conversation this guy had that impact. And although this was interesting, you can express only what is in your own consciousness. So it's one thing to have abilities, assets, blessings, but are we expressing that if we're not conscious of that, or if we're fixating our attention on what we lack? No, we're not expressing that. So this is, again, I think we're shifting now into, because the earlier part of the book was all about overcoming worry. I think we're shifting more now into how to start living. You've already got it, so be conscious of it, and then that's what you'll express. Says here, the habit I formed then of counting my blessing each morning still remains with me. It is one of my most precious possessions. I am ashamed to realize, there's that word again, to realize that I never really learned to live until I feared I was going to die. Again, emotional impact, that's a lot to confront, right? You're almost dead, and now suddenly, life is a gift. I can tell you my wife went through this with cancer treatments, right? She's not having tiptoeing through the tulips here, right? She's really serious about reaching goals and doing her thing, and she's an unstoppable force. Not that she wasn't before, but there was more let's say assumed luxury to equivocate, to be vague, to be reasonable, right? So she's less reasonable now, right? She goes after her goals. And, I think there's a lot of people who've been through that, where it's been a near-death experience, that sort of thing. Moving on, it says here, there are two things to aim at in life. First, to get what you want, and after that, to enjoy it. Only the wisest of mankind achieve the second. Right. Remember, Lindsay, in an earlier chapter where he said, I'd rather be a sharecropper in Alabama with a banjo on my knee than one of these guys stressed out running the printing press or whatever in New York. It's no. Only the wisest of mankind achieve the second. That's a great quote. All right. Count your blessings, not your troubles. Any other thoughts on this chapter before we move into 16? Any other thoughts?
That is funny. Yeah. See, so little people enjoy the banjo at the end of that. I'm just playing. No, it's like when you can fixate on something, and you can see something, but if it's not in your consciousness, it's like you can be right that guy 5 feet from gold. But if you're worried about something else, it's not in your view. So, so you got to bring that perspective into. And I had another point with that, but I just lost it. I don't remember.
I got it. Very good.
You guys bring it into focus.
All right. Well, now that you spoke up, you get to see my tan line. Check that out.
That's too funny. My Fitbit. Well, I usually have one on my.
That is like fluorescent.
Yeah. You got some fun with it.
And I'm Italian. I'm supposed to have like the olive skin or something. But anyway,
that's funny. We're in Florida now.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on chapter 15? Would you trade what you have for $1 million? Okay, very good. Let's move into chapter 16. Yeah. So find yourself and be yourself. Remember, there's no one else on earth like you. This was on my mind today during general session. A chance remark, Mrs. Allred continued, transformed my whole life. No matter what happened, I always insisted on their being themselves. She's talking about how she raised their kids. I realized that I had brought all this misery on myself by trying to fit myself into a pattern to which I did not conform. So here was this person going through troubles and got advice in the form of, no matter what happened, I always insisted on their being themselves. I realized I had brought all this misery on myself by trying to fit myself into a pattern which I did not conform. So again, we talked about this morning, the whole idea of comparing our insides to other people's outsides. Here's the celebrity, or here's the person in the same business that we're in who's excelled, and we haven't gotten to those heights yet. And always comparing, which means what? We're somehow deficient, not as good as, not good enough, right? All this internal dialogue, right? He goes on here. He's going to be talking a bit about purpose, which is, as I mentioned this morning in my assessment, to be always comparing yourself to other people is also a denial of your purpose, which is unique to you. And that's as miserable as it gets, right? Purposeless living. Right? So nobody is so miserable as he who longs to be somebody and something other than the person he is in body and mind. Yeah, that is a denial of one's purpose. Interesting stuff when we look at it that way. Now, the biggest mistake people make in applying for jobs is in not being themselves. Instead of taking their hair down and being completely frank, they often try to give you the answers they think you want. But it doesn't work because nobody wants a phony. Nobody ever wants a counterfeit coin. Does this also apply in the field of business? Right? Everybody here, has some entrepreneurial intention or participation, right? Yes, it does. It totally applies. All right, because I'm applying for a job, let's say. So that employer, we could say, is the customer. They would pay me in exchange for my work. That's a buyer-seller relationship right there. Okay, well, how about in business? I remember when I was early in my direct selling experience, I was attempting to be what I thought I needed to be for people. And then I got to a point where I just got frustrated and said, screw it all. And I just started being myself. I just didn't care. And people started throwing money at me. Imagine that, right? So you are the answer, like the real you. That's it. That's the answer. And that doesn't mean you're going to please everybody, but neither will attempting to be something you're not. That's not going to please everybody either. In fact, I've heard it said that it's the surest way to please nobody, or, to always attempt to be something that you're not. You'll never please yourself. Moving on, it says, let's not waste a second worrying because we are not like other people. You are something new in this world. You are something new in this world. Never before, since the beginning of time, has there ever been anybody exactly like you, and never again throughout all the ages to come will there ever be anybody exactly like you again. Now, if you have a hard time buying that. All right. So through all the ages, you mean there's never been anybody exactly like me? I mean, there's been, billions of people. There's billions of people right now. And okay. But you are a being. You are not just, the body and all and this collection of experiences that you're conscious of in your time here doing this life thing, this incarnation, right? So there is in Hindi, there's a word called dharma, which basically means purpose in life. It's your own unique combination of talents, abilities, drives, desires, intentions, and purpose, right? So yeah, that's unique to you. I like that idea because it makes the case that, like Ralph Emerson said, imitation is suicide. In fact, I think he quotes that here somewhere in this chapter. Okay, but it says here, I had to waste years of my life imitating other people before it penetrated through my thick Missouri skull that I had to be myself and I couldn't possibly be anyone else. So the futility of trying to be somebody else is exactly that. It's futility. It's an impossibility. There is a time in every man's education when he arrives at the conviction that envy is ignorance, that imitation is suicide. There's the quote, right out of Emerson's classic essay, Self-Reliance. Envy is ignorance, imitation is suicide. Think about that. Envy. So here I am comparing. What is that? That's ignorance. That means I'm not aware of the greatness that resides within me as me. Okay, so I'm demonstrating ignorance. Imitation is suicide, right? So killing myself to attempt to be someone else. Really bad stuff. So the power which resides in him is new in nature, and none but he knows what that is which he can do, nor does he know until he has tried. Again, this is an Emerson quote. Okay, so the power which resides in him is new in nature. So this is a novel, unique opportunity, okay? And nobody else knows it, including the individual, until they act. So our answer comes through action. Use the word tried here, which, okay, I get it. But the demonstration is what reveals the power which resides in him. This isn't theoretical only. This is an action. This is how to live. Powerful stuff. So let's not imitate others. Let's find ourselves and be ourselves. Who's got some thoughts on this awesome chapter? Hey, Robert, glad you're here. Linda, glad you're here. And we got a few more people in the house. That's cool. So we're talking about being ourselves. I got a lot out of these last two chapters. Those of you just coming in late, any thoughts on that? We do have two more chapters we're covering tonight. I really love the Emerson quotes. I'll just say that because in fact, that particular essay, Self-Reliance, has had such an impact not only on myself but on anyone who's read it. And the English is older, right? So you got to really read every word and see how he structures sentences. It's not as hard as reading Shakespeare or something. That's pretty rough. But Emerson, yeah, he had a lot of impact on other people, his contemporaries, as well as people who came later, James Allen and those guys.
Hey, John.
All right, Linda.
So, well, I must confess I did not read the chapter, but from what you just said, I mean, in order, okay, say for sales, for instance, I mean, I would love to emulate you, but I can't. So, yeah, no, I just have to be myself and just learn what that really is, discover the power within.
Well, let's take that up. So emulate or model, that's valid. That's not imitate, that's emulate.
Well, true.
Okay. So if we can not lose ourselves while at the same time finding role models, there's things that I would emulate about you. Well, Linda's great. She's better than I am at that thing, right? So how would Linda do it? What would Linda say? Right? While at the same time, I'm not asking you for a script, right? I'm asking you for guidance. and then I'll go ahead and go, execute and personalize and plagiarize and whatever it needs to be done. And this is, Linda, I'm glad you bring this up, because there are people who I look at who are beyond, in terms of like achievement, right? They're beyond things that I've achieved in this or that area of life. And something else that Emerson said is that in every act of genius, we recognize our own rejected thoughts. So here's the pianist, right? And they play beautiful piano music. Well, what did they give to do that? They gave their life to do that, right? We got our friend here in the group, Ingrid. She's not here right now, but she could play violin like, holy shit, right? And I've got a violin, and it doesn't sound like that. Not what I play it anyway. In fact, Ingrid, I think some of you know, wound up dropping 100,000 on a violin. Like that's her thing, So, so let's not lament what we've rejected if that's not our personal path and purpose. I could get better at violin, and to what end, right? To entertain myself or whatever. But I don't aspire to entertain the masses, in a symphony orchestra, which Ingrid does. Right? So yeah, and even within that, let's say we were just focused on an instrument. Well, how many people play guitar, and how many different sounds can come out of that thing, and different kinds of music, right? From country to folk music to metal to whatever, right? So there, I think one of the most beautiful things in life, when I stop and look, is the diversity of expression, tempered with sanity. Okay, so these days you say diversity and it means all kinds of stuff. So anyway, thank you, Linda. All right,
problem, John. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, well, we're just trucking right along here today. We're going to get on to chapter 17, which is about making lemonade. And really, guys, I hope you read these chapters. Read like 3, 4, 5 chapters a week. So this way, you've got some highlights of your own that you can come and say, here's how this applies to my life, or how I recognized what I was or was not doing with, the data. Anyway, if you have a lemon, make lemonade. All right. So the fool does the exact opposite, of what he's talking about here, where he's making lemonade. So the fool does the exact opposite. If he finds that life has handed him a lemon, he gives up and says, I'm beaten. It is fate. I haven't got a chance. Then he proceeds to rail against the world and indulge in an orgy of self-pity. Well written, sir. Well written. But when the wise man is handed a lemon, he says, what lesson can I learn from this misfortune? How can I improve my situation? Guys, every topic we've covered, every session we've had, everything we've ever talked about ever in this group comes down to one law, and it's cause and effect. Cause and effect. So here's the person indulging in an orgy of self-pity. I am a victim. I am effect. Here's the wise man who says, what can I learn? I'm cause. How can I improve? I'm cause. Cause, effect. Cause, effect. It's that simple. So I don't know if any of you have indulged in any orgies lately of self-pity, but if you have, read this paragraph like 15 friggin' times, because this is it right here. Moving on, it says here, the best things are the most difficult. So let's say we're going through a difficulty, we're facing a challenge, what have you. Well, that's the sharpening of the steel. The sweetness of reward comes with, having walked through fire. And how haven't we all seen this in our own lives, right? That which is too easily gained is not much appreciated. So happiness is not mostly pleasure, it is mostly victory. Yes, the victory that comes from a sense of achievement, of triumph, of turning our lemons into lemonades. Henry Ford said, there is joy in work. There's no happiness unless one recognizes they've accomplished something. Production. Today, I was putting together the gardening boxes. Those of you who were with us this morning, you know, we got these two. We got two of them because one's not enough. We got two 8 foot by 4 foot by 2 feet deep garden boxes. We did the installation. I was digging out the area to do it yesterday, and then we assembled the stuff, and we got the dump truck came across my lawn and dumped 5 cubic yards of dirt, and I'm out there with a shovel and I'm doing it. And the end result of that was a product. There it is. Look at it. There's the product, right? Garden boxes full of dirt. Very nice, right? And I felt awesome about it. Now my body is just wrenched. Okay. Not to mention that, you know, I got a little bit too much sun today and yesterday in preparation for this. But that's a product. That's production. I feel good about it. Right. So where I think a lot of people will, again, fixate on what's wrong or what they don't have or what didn't work out is compounded by also not smelling the roses, not recognizing your own achievements, even small wins. Moving forward, I'm not going to probably have a whole lot of thought about the garden boxes. They hold dirt. There's plants growing, right? That's it. So it's not like this is my project that I'm going to live with the rest of my life with, like, my trophy because I made garden boxes or something. No. Okay. But I damn well better stop and smell that coffee right now. All right. And let me say this too. There are other things crossed my mind. It's Monday. And this dirt had to go in these boxes. Rain's coming, right? The tarp is laid out. So it's got to get done. Okay. So Shannon worked on business stuff today. I didn't touch my computer all day. And so in my mind was, oh, you know what? The other thing, we got the contract over there. You know what? I didn't even post a TikTok video today. I'll do a double tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. But the you know, the inner ramblings of the mind, it's like, even while I'm producing here, oh, I should be doing that. I don't know if any of you are afflicted by that. You're doing this type of work, you should be doing that type of work. Now you're doing that type of work, you should be doing this type of work. Friggin' neurotic. Anyway, I'm just revealing to you that, you know, even as long as I've been practicing this stuff, those thoughts still can occur. I haven't like arrived at the top of the mountain or anything. Anyway, it says here, the most important thing in life is not to capitalize on your gains. Any fool can do that. The really important thing is to profit from your losses. That requires intelligence. And it makes a difference between a man and of sense and a fool. You know, I think of anyone who's learned great lessons through adversity. And he gives multiple stories in here about this. So I like to think that I'm not a fool. And I was able to look at the world and get a real sense of values. I began to realize that most of the things I've been striving for before weren't worthwhile at all. He's quoting here from a guy who had like this epiphany. It's like, wow, I've been barking up the wrong tree. Valuing these things, let's say, here's, you know, hot cars and, you know, yachts and whatever. Okay, that stuff exists and that's fine. But who you are, I think, is a much more valuable possession. He's talking here about values, right? That doesn't mean you can't have hot cars and yachts. I mean, if that's your thing, that's fine. But comparing ourselves to the Joneses all the time, back to this idea of being ourselves and not comparing our insides to other people's outsides. What we, I think, need to do is actually look at our values. Like, what do I value? This can also affect us in business. If we look at how other people operate their businesses and compare our level of activity or our intentions or our actual results and statistics against somebody else's, well, I mean, that could be, for better or worse, right? That could be their, you know, their life's mission. And this is a, you know, a side hustle for me, or that could be, you know, something that's, you know, a hobby for them, but for you, it's like a big deal. right? And therefore, you're going to have much more attention on it. But all this comparison stuff, what do you value? You. Great question. It says here, Nietzsche's formula for the superior man was not only to bear up under necessity, but to love it. On a mission. We've talked about this before, right? So here's the mission that we're on, and I love it. What's the alternative? Just, be kind of kicking around and not sure what to do and humdrum, same old, same old. Oh, please. Oh, please. No. Give me a mission. William James. William James has spoken. Our infirmities help us unexpectedly. So how serendipitous, right? That this trouble, has befallen us. And as a result of that, now we don't see it when we're in it always, okay? But how much stronger we became having walked through fire. Amazing stuff. The north wind made the Vikings. Okay, so wherever did we get the idea that secure and pleasant living, the absence of difficulty and comfort of ease, ever of themselves made people either good or happy? Upon the contrary, people who pity themselves go on pitying themselves even when they are laid softly on a cushion. But always in history, character and happiness have come to people in all sorts of circumstances, good, bad, and indifferent, when they shouldered their personal responsibility. Remember, cause and effect. So who's responsible? Anything we look at in our lives, we can ask ourselves, well, what part of that could I be responsible for? What could I do about it? There's the character. 2 reasons why we have everything to gain and nothing to lose, right? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a shot. Now we're going to make lemonade. 2 reasons why we have everything to gain and nothing to lose. Number 1, we might succeed. That's good. Reason 2, even if we don't succeed, the mere attempt to turn our minus into a plus will cause us to look forward instead of backward. It will replace negative thoughts with positive thoughts. It will release creative energy and spur us to get busy, so busy that we don't have either the time or the inclination to mourn over what is past and forever gone. This is right out of a previous chapter, right? One of the chapters, for those of you who've been reading along, about how to stop worrying was get like really busy. Like, I just don't have time to worry. I'm on a mission here, man. I'm like busy. What was the one story of the guy who, the stock market crash or whatever, and somebody said, do you know that you're bankrupt? And he's like, yeah. And he just kept on working. That was it. Yeah. Next story, please. Right. So keep moving forward. Finally, when fate hands us a lemon, let's try to make lemonade. Who's got some thoughts on the lemonade chapter? Come on down. I got to hear from somebody on this one. I've been doing all the talking tonight, just me and Lindsay. All the talking.
Hi, John.
Right.
I'll come out again. So even though
and
I
Linda,
didn't, even though I didn't read the chapter, you just read it to me. So so the best things, let's see, are most difficult. That resonated to me. That is it's like our growth. I mean, without the difficulty of going through that, you're not going to grow and get better at what you're doing. You said that happiness is not mostly pleasure, it's mostly victory.
Linda, as you're looking up the other quote you're about to reference, I was thinking of the quintessential, the image of coconut drinks on the beach. And I like coconut drinks. I'm not a big fan of the beach, but the point is that how many coconut drinks can you have? It's like it gets boring really fast.
Yes. Well, yeah, you keep doing the same thing. I mean, if you're not getting any good results and you keep doing the same thing over and over again, what good does it do you? You have to get through those difficulties in order to grow and get better.
And be happy. I think if life was just a beach, then My goodness.
Right. And happiness is all about attitude. I mean, if you don't have a good attitude, then,
And production. It's about production.
Yes. Yes.
That we accomplished something.
You can only,
That was drink freaking coconut drinks.
we can't, as far as we can only live in the now. We can't worry about the past.
Mm-hmm. Now I want coconut. I ate coconut water somewhere. I think I got some in the fridge.
Yeah, and about give me a mission. I mean, when you're on the mission, you're only focused. It's like laser focus.
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna get more done. You're gonna get more accomplished, and you have to give yourself challenges every day, because if you don't, it's that 1%, right?
Mm-hmm.
You do that little extra thing that that kind of scares you. You have to get through. Well, kind of like the terror barrier in some ways, but yeah.
Thank you, Linda. Lou Allen, welcome to our group. Lou Allen, you got a comment?
Yeah, mine goes along with imitating someone, as well as the, turning lemons into lemonade. So when you imitate someone, you don't have those challenges like you guys were talking about, because you're trying to imitate someone else. But the thing is you can't really imitate someone else because their path is different than your path, and you're not going to have the same experiences as them. And so you may get discouraged and go, well, I just might as well give up. There's no point in it. And that's where the turning the lemons into lemonade comes in. Like Linda had mentioned earlier, is, happiness is your attitude. Happiness is about how you think of things, and saying, I just might as well give up and throw your hands up and throw the paperwork all over, or in my case, clear my desk when I'm mad. You have to learn to, regroup, I guess, and figure out how to turn those lemons into lemonade. And how is that positive? How are you going to turn this negative into a positive and spin it so that way it works out in the end?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Again, a statement of responsibility, right? What can I do? That's great. Thank you, Lou. I'm glad you're here. I think we got one more chapter we're going to cover tonight, and then we're going to wrap it up and get together next week for more thrills and excitement. Chapter 18, How to Cure Melancholy in 14 Days. So he was citing here a psychiatrist and talking about people coming with all these issues. This stuck with me, though. It said, Ralph, they won't tease you and call you an orphan brat anymore if you will get interested in them and see how much you can do for them. So here was this kid who was orphaned and, was from home to home. And he got some advice here from this elderly woman who took him in and said, get interested in these other people and see what you can do for them. Right. Keep in mind, the name of this chapter is How to Cure Melancholy in 14 Days. So he did that, and suddenly he became popular. Right. So the whole, everything in these last 3 pages comes down to just this one, I think, this one quote from the Prince of Wales. I serve. Interesting to hear that come out of the mouth. This is going back some years, okay? But interesting to hear that come out of the mouth of royalty. I serve. But even in those circles, right, that closed group, you could say, here's a royal family, there could be wisdom. Personally, as a freedom-loving American, I never understood the whole royalty thing, like ever. But I suppose it has its uses. I serve. It says here, he's talking about this doctor. Dr. Loop had the inner glow of a man with a purpose, a mission. And we're back on purpose and mission again. He had the joy of knowing that he was being used by an idea far nobler and more significant than himself. Bigger picture, bigger perspective. Instead of being, as Shaw put it, a self-centered little clod of ailments and grievances, complaining that the world would not devote itself to making him happy. There it is. I've heard that if you got somebody who's talking about melancholy, they're sad, they're depressed, they're purposeless, give them problems. People come together. Think of I think it was somewhere in here the story of Pearl Harbor. So here's people that came together. And it was in one of these chapters, the woman who could barely get out of bed. Next thing you know, she's working the phones and the Pearl Harbor bombing and everything. So here's problems. Here's a mission. We need help. We need you to do this work. Suddenly she's out of bed. Not so self-absorbed. I can tell you in my entrance into the whole world of personal development and studying books and going to seminars and all this, I was monumentally self-centered. For anyone who's been around any alcoholics, drug addicts, right? That is a hallmark of that condition, is like spectacular self-centeredness. That's what he's talking about here, right? What can you go do? What mission can you go on? What problems can you solve? Because people need help, right? Here, have some problems. Suddenly you're happier. It's people that sit around navel gazing all day. It's a rough spot to be in. He gave this long quote from this. I think this is the one about, the psychiatrist here. This line stuck with me though. It is the individual who was not interested in his fellow man who has the greatest difficulties in life and provides the greatest injury to others. We could say narcissism, self-centeredness, that's what it's coming down to. The drunkard, right? There you go. Why will doing a good deed every day produce such astounding efforts on the doer? Because trying to please others will cause us to stop thinking of ourselves, the very thing that produces worry and fear and melancholia. All that self-absorption. So by giving, we receive. By helping someone and giving out love, I had conquered worry and sorrow and self-pity and felt like a new person. And I was a new person, not only then, but in the years that followed. He's talking about himself here. I could fill a book with stories of people who forgot themselves into health and happiness. And he gives more anecdotes. You've heard the saying selfless service. That's what he's describing here. It's a beautiful place to reside in. Now the attack, here's the story about the woman. The attack on Pearl Harbor was one of the greatest tragedies in American history, but as far as I was concerned, it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. That terrible crisis gave me strength I never dreamed I possessed. I took my attention off myself and focused it on others. It gave me something big and vital and important to live for. I no longer had time to think about myself or care about myself. That was her words. Okay, so you understand what she means by that. Not sitting around in her bed, bemoaning whatever, right? Here's problems, go solve them. So about 1/3 of my patients are suffering from no clinically definable neurosis, but from the senselessness and emptiness of their lives. This is the, one of the, Carl Jung. That's what he said. We're almost done. Doing good to others is not a duty. It is a joy, for it increases your own health and happiness. So I think we're making a case here, right, for having a bit of selfless service. I can tell you that there have been times when, and I wrote about this in Integrity is Everything, where I get to go with my wife to the mission, and we're going to serve up the Thanksgiving dinner and whatever. And what's in it for me? Nothing, and everything, right? Go and serve up the food. Have you done that? Right? That'll snap you out of ingratitude. Pretty awesome. So what people want, continued Professor Phelps, is a little attention as human beings. When I met a man on the street with a beautiful dog, I always comment, this is interesting, I always comment on the dog's beauty. As I walk on and glance back over my shoulder, I frequently see the man petting and admiring the dog. My appreciation has renewed his appreciation. Oh, so this could be, the butterfly effect, right? So you did the good deed for the person, and then they did something else, and then, but it all comes back. We don't know how to account for that, right? But there's a perfect accounting system in the universe, okay? But right here, he got to see that as he acknowledged and validated and praised, the dog, so did the owner. Maybe the owner was just out for the daily walk, takes the dog's beauty for granted. By the way, I love greyhounds. I don't have any greyhounds right now, but I had a greyhound, and I think they are just the most beautiful dogs ever. Kind of like a Lamborghini, fast, gorgeous, fragile. Okay, those are greyhounds, and not very smart, just in case you're wondering. But my goodness, you see a greyhound, wow, what a dog, I think. Anyway, there's my opinion. And I always appreciated when somebody was like, wow, that's a gorgeous hound. Like, yeah, that's Pharaoh. His name was Pharaoh. Anyway, a bit of fragrance always clings to the hand that gives you roses, Chinese proverb. So we're serving ourselves at the same time without even really putting any attention on it. So in conclusion, forget yourself by becoming interested in others. Do every day a good deed that will put a smile of joy on someone's face. And here's part 4 in a nutshell. And with that, we're going to go ahead and open it up one more time for any other comments, thoughts, questions on these 4 chapters.
At this point, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to play Stuart.
Oh, very nice.
Stuart Wilde, who has been conspicuous by his absence these many weeks.
I told him too. I was like, we're quoting who's the guy he likes? Euripides or
Epictetus. And,
Epictetus.
Marcus
Yeah,
Aurelius.
we got like these Epictetus quotes, and you're not around, man. What's going on? Anyway, he's been busy doing his sales gig.
But the motto of the Prince of Wales is hereditary. And you may have noticed it's not in English, it's in German. Ich dien, I serve. And it was adopted by Edward the Black Prince, who was Prince of Wales in the mid-1300s. At the Battle of Poitiers, which is one of the 3 chief battles of the 100 Years' War, he saw King John of Bavaria being led into the battle by his page. King John was blind, but he felt the need, despite his physical challenge as opposed to a handicap, that he needed to contribute to the cause. And the Black Prince was so moved by that he adopted Ich dien, I serve, which was the motto of King John of Bavaria, as his own. And it's been passed down hereditarily from each Prince of Wales from that day forward. This is a really wonderful chapter because it holds a basic key to what we need to do to make ourselves happy. And that is really to get interested in what's going on with other people, take a personal interest. Melancholy is, and here, Stuart, I hope I am making him proud, melancholy is one of the traditional 4 humors in medieval and ancient medicine. There were the 4 humors. There's the choleric, the sanguine, the phlegmatic, and the melancholy. And today we would say the melancholy is the person who essentially has a negative outlook on life and is rather passive. He's introverted and he sees very little purpose in life. Oddly enough, the melancholics become the greatest contemplatives because they're so inwardly oriented. And so having no other external force to compel them to interest themselves in life, they become the deep thinkers and the great contemplatives. But they miss out on a lot. They miss out on a lot. The potential for happiness is within us all. And if I can add a personal story, just happened today. I went out to a place where I buy my lottery tickets, and I've become a little friendly with the proprietor. And he asked me, how am I doing? His name is Bob. My name is Bob. So, there's at least that connection. And he greeted me warmly. Hello, Bob. How are you doing? But I said, I'd be remiss in not telling the entire truth if I didn't say we have a little bit of a tragedy in our family. My sister-in-law passed away very unexpectedly Wednesday morning of last week. My brother was wakened by their family dog, who went over to her side of the bed at like 4:30 in the morning, which he never does. And he was trying to raise her, but she had already passed. And I wasn't saying this to glean any sympathy or anything like that, but he said, well, he lost a cousin on just yesterday. And this cousin was only like 55 years old, a year older than my sister-in-law. He just had his 55th birthday on Friday. So his birthday was August 5th. He passed on August 7th. And we shared, a few stories about the circumstances and about this brought out in another one of his cousins, sister of the deceased, who was bucking to be black sheep of the family. But she was always quarrelsome and argumentative. She argued with the healthcare workers. She argued with everybody. But in the end, she was the only one who went down to Virginia from Long Island and was at his bedside when he passed away. And he said, her stock really went up with me. So, here's going back a chapter. Here is the ultimate lemon that life can give you, the death of a loved one. And yet we can always find something to draw out of it as an inspiration. And going back one more chapter, here is something that we can even emulate in other people. The ability to reach out, look beyond ourselves, and do an act of charity, of kindness that serves as an inspiration. And as you put it, it's like the butterfly effect. Knowing that one other person can do this unselfish act is really a one-time chagrin to us and an inspiration. We should find more opportunities where we can do this.
Thank you, Bob, and my condolences on your brother's loss.
Thank you.
Interesting today, and this is weird, guys. This is off topic, but if you'll humor me for a moment, because I don't see any other hot mics. While I was driving, I had I turned on the radio, and I heard a song I hadn't heard in a long time, and it was the song from the movie Grease. You're the one that I want. You better shape up because I need a man, right? So Olivia Newton-John and John Travolta. And then like 2 hours ago or 3 hours ago, I got notice on some social media, Olivia Newton-John, dead at age 73. Today, I hadn't heard that song in I don't know how long. Weird. Today. So what does that mean? I don't know. It doesn't mean anything. Just came up for me. So anyway, thank you for being a part of our book study group. We're going to get together again next week. So feel free to invite a friend or two. We're going to go through chapter 19. Is it 19? Yeah, let's knock out a few chapters here, at least 4. Okay. And I will see you guys then. Make it a great day. You deserve it.